In this segment, I will discuss the skills you need to develop to be an effective listener. Before we begin, if you have not done so already, please download the documents that go with this segment. I want to start by reading an article that appeared in the newspaper recently. The most ambitious use of technology to combat traffic congestion debuts next month along one of the nation's most clogged arteries. Drivers on Interstate 95 from New Jersey to North Carolina will have access to real-time information on traffic flows, crashes, and travel time to help them anticipate delays. Real-time information is critical to drivers, not only in terms of what's going on, but also in terms of providing alternative solutions, says James Ray of the Federal Highway Administration, which is overseeing this project. Each year, congestion costs $78 billion in delays and wasted fuel, according to a report from Texas A&M University. The new network will initially cover 1,500 miles of freeway between New Jersey and North Carolina. It could eventually be expanded to include the entire East Coast from Maine to Florida. Now, answer the following questions on the space provided in your workbooks. First, what interstate will the new network debut on? Second, what is the name of the agency that is overseeing the project? Third, how much does congestion cost each year? 4. What university is mentioned in the article? And finally, how many miles will the new network initially cover? Now let's discuss the answers. The network will debut on Interstate 95. The Federal Highway Administration is overseeing the project. Congestion costs $78 billion each year. Texas A&M University is mentioned in the article. The network will cover 1,500 miles from New Jersey to North Carolina. Did you get all the answers correct? Why not? If I had told you that I was going to test you after I read the article, would you have remembered more? When you are with customers, do they say, "I have something important to tell you, so please make sure you are listening"? No, they just talk. So you always need to be listening. When asked on surveys what customers want from salespeople, the answer usually comes down to 3 things. They want to have a salesperson that they trust, respect, and like. Customers will determine whether or not they trust you based on your response when they have an objection. The questions you ask and how you ask those questions will determine if your customer respects you. The way you can get a customer to like you is by listening. Remember, as we talk about in the other videos, if you're a service advisor, then you are in sales. In psychology studies, they have found that if 2 people are having a conversation and one person is doing all the talking and the other person is doing all the listening, the person doing all of the talking will have a higher opinion of the listener than the listener will have of the person doing all the talking. Even though the talker did not find out any information from the other person, he will have a higher opinion of the listener than the listener will have of him. Why is this the case? Most people like people who show an interest in them and their opinions. The next time you're at a dinner party or a cookout and are having a conversation with someone, try and let them do all the talking. When that person is on their way home, they will tell their spouse how great you are. When their spouse asks them what you do for a living or how many children you have, they won't know the answer. But they will still say you're a great person. By listening, you can make people like you. If your customers like you, then you are well on your way to a sale. We have been talking about listening in this segment, not hearing. There is a difference between listening and hearing. Hearing is passive. Listening is not. Most of us were born with the ability to hear. Listening is a skill that you need to develop if you want to be successful in sales. Many of you decided to get into sales because you have the gift to gab. Someone told you that you are such a good talker, you should be a salesperson. This could not be further from the truth. In order to be successful in sales, you need to be a good listener. Most salespeople believe they should be doing the majority of the talking. The truth is that the talk-to-listen ratio is the opposite of what you have been told. You should be listening twice as much as you are talking. That is why you have 2 ears and only 1 mouth. Keep this ratio in mind when you are with a customer. If you find yourself doing most of the talking, stop. Chances are, if you are doing most of the talking, you have lost your customer's interest. Stop talking and start listening to get it back. Developing good listening skills starts with a mindset that the customer is the way to the sale, not an obstacle within it. We talk more about this in the consultative selling video. Listening requires interest and patience. Some customers like to open up and share information, while others need encouragement to state their needs. The use of questions is a skill that not only will help you to get customers to open up, but also goes hand in hand with listening. It is through listening that the best questions are born. You cannot ask good questions if you are not listening. When you ask generic questions or questions that could apply to anyone, you are not consultatively selling. You are also not developing any rapport, and you are showing your customer that you are not listening. As you saw in the questioning skills video, asking questions enables you to find out what is important to your customer so you can show them how they will benefit from your products and services. However, in order to ask good questions, you need to listen to what the customer is saying. In addition, to be able to match a feature to a benefit for that customer, you need to be listening for their hot buttons. I firmly believe that customers will give you all the information you need to not only sell them something today, but also to develop a long-term relationship with them, provided you listen to them and listen after you ask a question. Too often, when you start asking questions, you stop listening. Never stop listening. In addition, when you are with a customer, you should be listening not just so you can answer their question, but also to determine the question you want to ask them. The most powerful questions come when you take something the customer said and ask a question about it. As a service advisor, you have to be very good at listening and asking questions. When a customer comes to see you with a concern about their vehicle, you need to be able to put down their concern on a repair order so that the technician can diagnose the problem. If you do not write the concern correctly, you run the risk of the technician not being able to find the problem, or in a worse case, fixing a non-existent problem. Therefore, you need to listen very closely to what the customer says and ask questions based on that information. If the customer states that their vehicle is making a terrible noise, you need to drill down and ask about it. You could say something to the effect of, "Tell me more about that noise," or "Describe the noise." Since the customer brought up the noise and you are listening, you now ask a question about it. Well, this works the same way when you are talking to a customer to develop rapport. If a customer tells you that they need their car back by 5 p.m. because they are going to the Yankee game, make sure you pick up on the cue they just gave you and ask a question about it. What do you think the cue was? That's right, it was the Yankee game. If you just heard that they needed their car by 5 p.m., then you missed a golden opportunity to develop rapport with the customer. What you should ask the customer is, are you a Yankee fan? Don't assume that they are. If you don't ask, you might find yourself telling them when they pick up the car, "Let's go Yankees." Meanwhile, they are a Detroit Tiger fan and they are going to the Yankee game because the Yankees are playing the Tigers. After you take your foot out of your mouth, you will realize that you should have asked them that question. If you had asked them if they were a Yankee fan, they would have told you that they are a Tiger fan. Now, you could just let it go at that. However, I would ask them why they are a Tiger fan. Maybe they grew up in Detroit or went to college there. Whatever the reason, it may give you an opportunity to develop a relationship with this customer. Maybe you have family in Detroit, or maybe you are a Tiger fan. Whatever the case, you need to look for the cues the customer is giving you and ask questions about it. You will only find the cues if you listen. As you can see, in order to ask great questions, you need to be listening. A great question is one that flows naturally from something that was just said. The next time you're with a customer, listen in order to ask questions, not just to answer them. As I mentioned earlier, listening is a skill that you need to develop. Listening does not happen by default. You must work at it, and if you are in sales, you are in the listening business. Because you need certain skills and tools to become an effective listener, we are going to refer to this process as active listening. Active listening consists of several techniques that you need to master. These techniques are the proper use of body language when listening, being able to take great notes, the ability to minimize interruptions and distractions, eliminating bad listening habits, listening for those keywords, listening for what is not being said, and having a positive attitude. I will discuss each one of these techniques so you can improve your listening skills. When you are listening to another person, it's important that you show that person that you are listening. You can do this through the use of body language. First, make sure your arms are not crossed. You want to convey a sense of openness to what they are saying. Therefore, your arms should be down to the side if you are standing. If you are sitting, they can either be down to your side or on the desk. However, make sure you are not moving them. Don't twiddle your thumbs. Moving your arms can be a distraction for the speaker, and it gives the impression that you are not listening. As the other person is speaking, you should be periodically nodding your head. Not like a bobblehead doll, just nod slowly up and down so the speaker knows you are listening. You should also be using eye contact to show that you are listening. First, do not look away from the speaker. If you are not looking at the person talking, they will presume you are not listening. However, do not stare at them either. Simply look at their eyes and then look down at their mouth. This slight movement from looking at their eyes to their mouth will let them know that you are looking at them and therefore listening. But you will not be staring. Finally, if you are taking notes, do not bury your head down and write. Look up at the speaker periodically as you take your notes. In order to effectively listen, you have to eliminate anything that will distract you, including interruptions. Now, you might wonder how you can eliminate interruptions. Well, the best way to do this is to move to a quiet area that has a door and the ability to turn off the phone and paging system. In the event that you do not have such a room, then you must minimize interruptions by letting the people who could interrupt you know that you are busy. Service advisors need to work as a team to look out for each other. If you see one of your fellow advisors is with a customer, then do not interrupt him. Try and take his calls. And if he has another customer come in while he is tied up, go and talk to that customer. In some dealerships, you can write the customer up for the other advisor. If your dealership does not do this, then at least let the other customer know that he is tied up and will be with them in a moment. You would want him to do the same thing for you. If you are going to be able to listen effectively to your customers, you must work together to reduce interruptions. Distractions can also inhibit your ability to listen properly. Therefore, you will need to eliminate these distractors. Some distractors you face every day include the phone ringing, the paging system calling your name, your cell phone ringing or vibrating, your computer flashing that you have email, or possibly another person near you and your current customer. These distractors will need to be minimized. In your workbooks, you can see an area where you can add other distractors as well as a place to come up with solutions to the distractors. For the distractors we just mentioned, you can do a few things to minimize them. First, when you are with a customer, all of your phones should be turned off, including your cell phone. Even if your cell phone is on vibrate, it will still be a distraction. In an emergency, your significant other will call the dealership and someone will come and get you. So turn your cell off. Next, if you are with a customer, put your phone on Do Not Disturb and have your co-service advisors answer your phone or let it go to voicemail. Your colleagues should also answer your page if you are with a customer. Next, if you're in your office and you do not want to be distracted by your computer, turn the monitor off. Or if you have a laptop, close it. Finally, try to remove yourself from any areas where there might be other customers around. In service, in order to reduce interruptions, you need to work as a team with your fellow advisors. As I mentioned, make a list of your most frequent distractions and come up with a solution to eliminate each one. If you don't do this, then you will continue to have to deal with distractions when you should be listening to your customers. In order to be an effective listener, many of you will have to overcome one or more poor listening habits. I have come up with 6 listening habits that can affect one's ability to actively listen. First, not paying attention. This occurs when the listener is distracted or thinking of something else while the speaker is talking. Second, pseudo-listening. This happens when the listener is thinking about something else but pretends to be listening to the speaker. This can prevent you from hearing important information. Third is rehearsing. Rehearsing is when the listener thinks of something he wants to say. He then stops listening and rehearses his response. The fourth bad listening habit is interrupting. The listener doesn't wait until the speaker is done talking before he starts talking. Hearing what is expected is the fifth poor listening habit. The listener hears what he expects the speaker to say. Many times we jump ahead of the speaker because we feel we have heard it all before. In this scenario, we think we know what the speaker will say, so that is what we hear, even if it is not what was said. Finally, listening for a point of disagreement is when the listener waits for the chance to find a reason to disagree with the speaker. These poor listening habits will need to be broken if you want to be an effective listener. Look at this list in your workbook and note those that hit home. For these, try and make a conscious effort to eliminate them. When your customers are speaking, listen for the key words that they are saying. These words are the things that are important to them. It is your ability to listen for these key words that will help you sell them your products and services. For example, if your customer says, "I can't believe the price of gas," use this information to sell them a 30,000-mile service. Tell them that some of your customers have had routine maintenance done on their vehicles and have found increased fuel economy. We talk about this way of selling in the features and benefits video. In order to sell more with increased gross profit, You need to sell benefits, not features. In order to sell a customer the benefits of your services, you need to find out what is important to them. Listen, and they will tell you. I mentioned earlier that you communicate with your customers through body language. Well, guess what? They communicate with you through body language as well. When you are listening to them, pay attention to their body language, including their eyes. If a customer is touching their fingers together in a steeple-like fashion, it means that they feel they are an authority on the subject they are speaking about. Therefore, you may not want to question it. If they are covering their mouth, then they are probably not being forthright. Slapping their hand down on the table means they are showing conviction. If their eyes light up when they mention certain things, then these would be the words to key on for your questions. Reading your customer's body language is an important listening skill. Customers also communicate through their tone of voice. Make sure you are listening for voice inflections when they speak. Their tone will tell you if they are interested or not, annoyed or positive, relaxed or anxious. If their voice trails off at the end of a sentence, then they are probably not committed. As I have mentioned in other videos, communication is made up of body language, tone of voice, and words. When you are listening, you need to be aware of all of these. The last active listening technique deals with your attitude. If you are in a bad mood or are angry or upset, you will not be able to listen effectively. Active listening requires you to put aside your own feelings and have a positive attitude. Only you can control your own attitude. If you have problems at home, leave them at the door. If you just had a bad customer experience, put it aside. In order to listen to what your customer is saying, you need to be acting positively. Only you know what can put you in a positive state of mind. For some people, it is listening to music on their way into work. For others, it is working out at the gym, or perhaps having a good meal, or getting to work early. Whatever it is, make sure you do it. If you do not have a positive attitude when you are with a customer, you will not be listening and your grosses and CSI will suffer. So, even though it sounds corny, put a smile on. You will be more successful because of it. Finally, as you can see, if you want to sell more maintenance and repairs with more gross profit and higher customer satisfaction, you need to be an excellent listener. However, listening is not innate. You need to work at it just like any other skill. The more you concentrate on the active listening techniques we spoke about, the better listener you will become. Your questioning skills will also improve as well. Once again, thanks for watching.